The storm outside had been raging for hours, thunder echoing across the valley like the anger of heaven itself. In the heart of that storm, a man named Luke Carson stood inside the old barn, his jaw tight, his eyes shadowed beneath the brim of his hat. Before him, tied to a wooden post, stood a woman whose name he hadn't even been told when they brought her in. Her wrists were bound, her dress torn from travel, her lips trembling in fear. They said she had broken tradition. They said she'd betrayed the town. But as Luke looked at her, something in his chest shifted, something that didn't belong to law or custom, but to a kind of mercy he hadn't felt in years. The woman lifted her tear-filled eyes. "Please, I'm begging you, untie it." Her voice was barely above a whisper, trembling through the sound of rain. Luke hesitated. Behind him, the sheriff's men waited in silence. Outside, lightning cracked across the sky. Luke had always followed orders, always done what was right by the rules of men. But looking at her, cold, frightened, and alone, those rules suddenly felt smaller than the sound of her voice. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. "What's your name?" he asked. "Anna," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Anna Reed." Luke swallowed hard. The name meant nothing, yet everything. Somewhere deep down he knew that if he untied those ropes, he'd never be the same man again. The sheriff called out, "Carson, you doing your job or falling for those eyes?" Luke didn't answer. He reached up slowly, his hands shaking as they brushed against the rough rope. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. Anna blinked back tears. "I refused to marry a man I didn't love. My father sold me for land, and I ran." For a long moment there was silence. Only the rain tapping on the roof, only the sound of her trembling breath. Then with one sharp pull, Luke cut the rope. The sheriff's men stepped forward, startled. "Carson, what in God's name are you doing?" Luke turned, his hand resting on the grip of his revolver. "What's right?" he said. Anna fell into his arms, weak but free. The storm outside began to fade, and for the first time in years, Luke felt the weight of something holy. By morning, the whole town knew. They called him a traitor, a fool, a man who'd thrown away his badge for a woman who didn't belong. But Luke didn't care. He led her to his horse, gave her his coat, and said, "Wherever you're going, I'm riding with you." The journey that followed tested them both. Nights spent under cold stars, days without food, men chasing them across the plains. Yet through every mile Anna's courage grew, and Luke's heart healed from the scars of his own past. She told him how her husband-to-be had been a cruel man, twice her age with a temper sharper than a blade. She'd rather face hunger than live in chains. Luke understood. He'd lived his life by chains of another kind, rules, duty, guilt. Weeks later, when the posse caught up, Luke was ready. He faced them on the ridge, revolver drawn, his hat low. "You'll have to shoot me first," he told them. No one did. Maybe it was the way he stood. Maybe it was the look in Anna's eyes when she stepped beside him, refusing to hide. In that moment, the West changed. Not for all, but for them. Months passed. They built a life in the foothills, a cabin by the stream, horses grazing nearby. Sometimes at night, Anna would still wake from nightmares, clutching her wrists where the ropes once were. Luke would take her hands and whisper, "You're safe now. No man owns you." "Not even me," she would smile, tears shining in the lamplight. "Then maybe," she'd whisper. God did answer. And in that small, quiet cabin, where love grew from ashes and mercy became stronger than law, Luke realized freedom was not just something you fought for. Sometimes it was something you gave. He never went back to the town. But every year, when the storm came rolling over the valley again, Luke would sit on the porch and watch the rain, remembering the night she said those words. "Please, I'm begging you, untie it," and he'd whisper back to the memory, "I did." And it untied me too.